Welcome to this, the third episode. That's right, we've made it to 3, which is similar to what I said in the last episode, where I congratulated ourselves on making it to 2. We're one better again. Now we're up to 3, which means that we must be taking it somewhat seriously. So much seriously that we actually tried to do something ahead of something coming out. So the main focus, if not the sole focus of this episode, is myself, Dan, and Phil.
Hello, I am here.
They are, Phil. Over the wondrous world of the internet, Phil is talking to us via Skype. But we're not only joined by Phil, we also have good old Joe.
Ready, willing, and warm as hell.
Warm as hell. Sweating it up a storm.
Yep.
Yeah, you've had a fantastic, eventful day, haven't you, Joe, of being surrounded by warm objects and or being very, very hot within them.
Yes, so basically spent most of my time with my head inside a light box covered in lights.
There you go.
Okay, it sounded worse than what it actually was, I have to say.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. We didn't even mention why he had to wear jeans today, why he couldn't go into work with shorts on like he would like to, but we'll leave that alone. No one needs to talk about his cat weeing on his property. It's a terrible business. But nonetheless, yeah, so this is episode 3 of the Lookout Sir podcast. We were at one point calling it the Lookout Sir Experience Recorded because we liked the idea of having the acronym loser, but we realised that it's too much of a mouthful and sounds absolutely ridiculous, so we're just going back to, as per the title, the Lookout Sir podcast, or 40k podcast to be more accurate. But today, yeah, as I said, we're going to try and get ahead of the game, and we're going to be talking about Kill Teams. Kill Teams is coming out on Saturday. It is our intention that this comes out today, Friday. So if you are listening to this Friday, I've done what I needed to do. Our conversation concluded as it should have done, and we're now available on YouTube, which should be exciting. Hopefully we get it done. It's all on me now. No pressure.
You can do it, Dan.
Absolutely. Although, to be fair,
We believe in you.
Phil also does need to produce some artwork for this as well, though, to be fair. Just throw that back at you.
Don't worry.
Get that done, mate. Make that happen. But yeah, so during today, we're just going to talk about Kill Team. And then the only other little kind of thing that probably needs clarifying is that at the moment we are working really hard to get this podcast onto iTunes and to Google and to Spotify and to Stitcher and who else am I looking at the moment? Maybe some others, I can't remember. Lots and lots of different podcast providers, but obviously iTunes is like your number one. But that takes a really long time, and actually, as it turns out, costs a little bit of money as well. So I'm currently working with a series of different kind of accounts and providers to try and get that approved and done. So hopefully you'll be able to hear this podcast very soon on iTunes. We'll keep you posted on that. Should it be that the podcast goes live on iTunes anytime between this and our 4th episode coming to life, we'll make sure to include a link to it on iTunes in our description below. But for now, we hope that you enjoy us chatting about Kill Team ahead of its Saturday launch tomorrow. And yeah, thanks very much as always, guys, for checking us out. Hope you enjoy. Cheers. Hey everyone, so to kick things off, we're going to talk about Kill Team. Everyone's talking about Kill Team at the moment because Kill Team's bloody exciting. It's new and interesting, so kind of needs talking about. Neither myself or Phil have the rules for Kill Team in our possession right now, but by some marvellous turn of events, our good friend Joe has the rulebook in his hand one day ahead of release and is ready to impart his knowledge upon us. Are you excited about this opportunity, Joe?
I am very excited about it, and obviously because I am a well prepared individual. I haven't really read it.
Amazing.
But
the whole basis of this segment was you telling us about the rules, and I guess we're all going to be discovering it.
It's all going to be. It's going to be a learn as we go experience, full of fun. There'll be twists and turns, some crying, some laughing. It'll all be good.
I'm excited already, mate. I'm excited already. Well, you have the floor. Tell us about Kill Team.
So, Kill Team is the newest iteration of the Kill Team franchise, as it were. This time based around 8th edition, which is cool, with some like tweaks and changes. Just like normal 8th edition, you've got the options of open play, which is cool. You've got match play, so obviously lots of big events have already started planning tournaments around it, and you've got narrative play as well. Although I kind of feel like open play and narrative play are almost identical.
It's like the
cool.
third or fourth version of Kill Team in the last like 2-3 years, right? I mean, admittedly I'm including Necromunda in my comparisons when it comes to small skirmish games, but this is pretty much like the third or fourth, I want to say.
You had Armageddon, Shadow War Armageddon before this, and then they just had normal like Kill Team rules that released by White Dwarf or on their website, I think. And then in the 6th Ed Codex, there was rules in the back for the Kill Team as well, I believe. So, but like those were like the first two were basically the rules set, and you just picked models and they just activated independently. Armageddon had its own rule set with weapon options and stuff, whereas this one is very much a case of you buy each model individually, you buy their upgrades individually. Their stats don't really change from their codex entries at all. It's just so the stats are the same, the guns shoot exactly the same, but it's all based around modifiers. So if you're shooting at someone in the open, a Space Marine hits on a 3, but if they're wounded, then it's a -1. If your opponent's in cover or obscured, it's just a flat -1. So a lot of the time, in previous versions, there was like part obscured, fully obscured, or in the open. Now it's just a case of if you can see them, you can shoot them. It's either -1 or no minus. And they've brought in from 8th edition the stratagem system as well, which is really cool. So you basically generate a command point a turn, which is cool. So you start with 0, then you generate 1. If you have a leader on the table, the leader's basic like level 1 ability is called resourceful, which then generates an extra 1. So you're essentially always going to have 2 command points a turn. And
Isn't that quite similar to how Age of Sigmar does stratagems? Because if I remember, they generate those at the turn as well.
Yeah, it's a weird mishmash kind of thing. And then there's like other changes where in the movement phase, you like normal game, I move all my models, you move all of yours. Then the movement phase is also when you declare things like charging as well, or you can prepare yourself, which basically, if you prepare a model without moving, it means that they gain the initiative in the shooting phase to go first, because then from shooting phase, combat phase, you roll off to see who has the initiative, and then you alternate models.
So there isn't actually. So what you're saying is it goes movement phase, shooting phase, fight phase. Morale, I guess, has some element. We'll worry about that when we get there. But
there's also a psychic phase as well.
Oh, okay.
But that's Thousand Suns and Grey Knights currently. So they have some abilities which from what I can see, is either like mortal wounds or obscuring.
But but what I was trying to get at, so there is no charge phase. Not that there ever was technically a charge phase.
Charge phase kind of works like early editions of Fantasy or Lord of the Rings. So that's all in your movement phase. So you can either move to a better position or you charge, negating your shooting phase.
And is the charge distance movement plus 2d6, or is it just 2d6?
It's just your 2d6.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Which is pretty risky, but I like that sort of trade.
It's a risk-reward kind of thing.
And then if I remember rightly, you can, if you're being charged, you can overwatch, but you can also elect to retreat. Is that 3 inches?
Yeah, so retreat. So a target model cannot retreat if they've already made a move in any turn or attempted to charge. He can he can retreat if he has already fired Overwatch in this phase. When a model retreats, it can be moved up to 3 inches by the controlling player.
That's
It must end with the model further away than the charging model, and more than 1 inch away from another model. But if you retreat, you can't react later in the round. So you can't. So if someone charges you, and you choose to retreat after firing Overwatch, you can't do anything else. So it's kind of like a risk-reward system.
okay, that makes sense.
Like, tactically, it's a good way of being like, well, I'm going to charge that person's heavy bolter marine who's not very good in combat. I can either tie him up and kill him, or he has no choice but to fall back. But then it means I'm not going to get shot for a turn.
Is that
Yeah.
working based on the fact that, because again, from what limited stuff I've read up on this, and forgive me, I think you did say this at the start, so we're alternating movement actions in a turn, right? So it's not like I go, you go.
It's been the movement phase. I move all of my models, then you move all of yours.
Okay, so it's not it's not a sequence. So it's not I move a model, then you move a model, then I move a model, you move a model. It literally it's like normal 40k.
Yeah, it's normal 40k.
So it's quite beneficial then to almost get the initiative in that movement phase if you want to charge, because if you don't want to charge if you do want to charge and you're going second, the other person can just move away and then still shoot at you. As opposed to where you have to then, if you're within charge range, you've then got to either fall back or Overwatch and take the charge.
I guess so, because like I think it would probably be better to go second, because your opponent can charge you and you can fall back and leave them in the open. So when you do all your movements, you can then react to them. So someone else could charge them. So you could lure them in with one guy and charge them with another, or they can charge you. You lock that person in combat, and then you can counter charge with a short charge of your own model.
Yeah, true. Yeah, because what happens if you fail the charge? Do you still move that distance?
Yeah, you do.
Oh, that's cool.
You do, so unlike in other editions, if you fail a charge, you actually do move that distance.
Yeah.
Because I'm just checking on the Warhammer community page, and they're actually saying, for the sake of speed, movement in Kill Team is handled on an I go, you go basis. So are you sure about the whole I move all my stuff, I move all my stuff, you move all your stuff side of things? Because based on what I'm reading here, it sounds like it's different.
Oh, I think they mean I go, you go, as in I go and you do all my movement, then you go and do all of yours, not I go, you go, I go, you go, I go, you go, and then repeat.
Okay.
I think
So
that's what they meant.
the rules
That'll be a
rules
misunderstanding on my part, then I apologise.
The rules as written, it says in the movement phase, each player will take it in turn to move all of the models in their kill team that way that they wish to move, following the order determined in the initiative phase, because you roll off to see who goes first. Mm-hmm. Once a player has moved all of the models they want to, the next player does the same, and so on until all players have moved all of the models they wish to. So basically, that terminology is based on if you're playing a multiplayer game. So if the three of us are playing, we roll off for initiative, and then I go, Phil goes, then you go down.
Gotcha. Okay,
And
there you go. My
once all
misunderstanding
players
on
done
that.
so, the movement phase ends and the psychic phase begins. And then for the terms of charging, if the model cannot finish its move while following these restrictions of charging, going up and down, not being within 1 inch of an opponent, the charge fails and the model is not said to have charged. However, the model can move up to its charge distance so long as that the move makes it as close as possible to at least one of the targets of its charge, and not within 1 inch of a model. A model can only make one charge attempt in the movement phase, and once it has done so, cannot shoot later in the battle round.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, it stops you from shooting and charging, so you then have that trade-off as well.
It's weird though that they opted to do a 2d6 charge in that set of circumstances, because normally in like the older versions of the games, especially if you were to look at Shadow War Armageddon, you would just charge double your movement statistic, because obviously they had a movement statistic. But I guess back then in Shadow War Armageddon, a Space Marine, or not a Space Marine, but a Scout, for example, moves 4 inches, I think. So I guess that's probably where the 2d6 thing comes in. I know they're quite married to that mechanic in Games Workshop these days, so I'm not too surprised. But it does seem weird. But I guess that's part of the strategy of the game. Having not played it, it must be to do with how you position your troops and ready yourself for what's to come, I guess.
Yeah, it's definitely like a risk reward, because you could, if you're going anything over 7 inches, it's statistically unlikely to pull off. If it was, say, movement plus d6, it would almost be too easy to get a charge off the majority of the time, I would say. Whereas, 2d6 makes it a lot more random.
Yeah, I suppose it'd be beneficial, though, for units with a short movement range. So something like a Poxwalker's only got a movement of 6. So if you chose to advance, you only get the d6 on that. So the maximum you could get is 10. Whereas, like you could try and aim for that 11 or get the full charge kind of thing. Yeah. It's one of those ones.
Sorry, go on.
I was gonna say, if you're not overly fussed about getting something into combat, but you want to reach some terrain that's far out of the way, I guess it'll make it useful.
But I suppose then you also have to run the risk of being overwatched, though, right?
Yeah. Yes. Gonna take a solid hit.
Yeah, I wonder if the mechanic of if you're charging, you can't shoot, and obviously, I presume if you advance, you can't shoot. If that encourages you to take close combat focused units that basically don't really have a shooting weapon at all, so they're just cheap and just loaded up with some axes or something like that, just to encourage you to always be moving and charging where possible, as opposed to like a dual build where you've got like a Space Marine who's got like a bolt gun but also a close combat weapon as well. And it's like you're paying extra for that versatility, but you're never going to be able to use both items in one turn.
Yeah, pretty much.
So how does shooting and combat work, Joe? How does all that come about?
How does all this happen? So,
you're so well prepared, Joe. I appreciate your dedication to this project of ours. It's good to see.
Right. So if you want to shoot...
not even going to answer that. Just go, yes, all right.
I'm not even going to...
Move on.
Basically, you can move normally or you can ready. So basically, in the shooting phase, you roll off for initiative, but if you have readied models, it means that you then have priority over the initiative roll. So the words are ready, fire, readied models, shoot before all other models. Players take it in turn to choose a readied model from their kill team to shoot, or pass. If a player passes, it is the next player's turn to choose. Once all have done so, you do so again, the same with all the units that have passed. So if you're not sure who you want to shoot at, you can pass it to your opponent, and then they do what they want to do, and that can kind of help you make a decision.
That's interesting. So you can pass that priority.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. I mean, and also as well, doing that thing with the readying units to make them fire beforehand is really interesting as well. There's a Warhammer 40,000 living LTG, sorry, like living card game LCG. Anyway, it's called Warhammer Conquest or Warhammer 40,000 Conquest, and it's really interesting because it's got this range mechanic to it. So if your unit that you deploy at a planet has the range keyword, they fight before all others, and I think that's actually really interesting. It was always really interesting how that priority works. So to see that replicated in the tabletop games, not that this necessarily replicates it, but that seems like a very elegant rules mechanic especially for your more kind of specialist heavy weapon guys, to have that priority to lay down fire before anyone else is really, really interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a nice trade-off from basically electing to not move and sacrificing that potential versatility to be able to shoot before anyone else. Yeah, it's pretty. It seems a lot more nuanced than a standard 40k game. There's a lot more depth to it, even just from like these few rule changes that we've had so far.
Yeah. So when it comes to shooting, say for instance, I'm going to shoot with a guardsman. Like I said earlier, a guardsman, like his standard codex profile, is illicit skill 4+. So he's going to hit on a 4 with his strength 3 rapid fire 1 lad's gun. And if, for instance, he's shooting at a Gene Stealer cult guy who's stood in the open, he hits him on the 4. If he's behind cover, then he'll be hitting him on 5. And then, if, for instance, he's being wounded but not out or pinned, then he's going to be hitting him on 6s.
You also might be thinking you're -1 if you shoot over half range as well.
No.
Oh,
So ranged visibility is, in order for the shooting model to target any model, the model must be within range of the weapon being used and be visible to the shooting model. And then it says, if unsure, stoop down and get a good look from behind the shooting model.
As you do.
It's as you do, and then you can't shoot if what you're shooting at is in combat as well. And then the half range one was that an Armageddon rule?
It was, but I thought I'd seen a battle report already about Kill Team where they'd used it as well. So I don't know if it's under the weapon.
That might be one of the mission things.
Could also be them getting it wrong based on how our conversation's going. There's much to get wrong here.
So there's lots of different mission types, and I think see if I can find mission special rules. I'm pretty sure there's a mission where it's like a dawn. It's based around a dawn raid. So like the first turn, there are more negatives because it's dark, basically. Or there's like a smog in the air.
Joe, we talked a lot about, or you've talked a lot about the negative modifiers of cover. Is that, am I to assume then that cover is a bit more old school in how it's being operated in Kill Team, or is it still using...
So cover also affects your damage roll as well.
Okay.
So you roll to wound as normally. So like, if the strength of the gun is, it still wounds as standard. So if it's equal to, it's a 4+. If it's greater to, it's a 3. If it's double, it's a 2. And then the lower, it's a 5. If it's half, then it's a 6+ kind of thing. But then, just trying to find the exact one. So it basically affects the injury roll. So you roll to wound, and your opponent rolls to save. And then basically injury roll is when a model's wounds are reduced to 0, and most things in the game only have 1 wound. The controlling player makes an injury roll for that model. And basically, you roll a d6 and apply modifiers. So on a 3 or less, it's a flesh wound. On a 4+, it's out of action. But if you're behind cover, then there's a -1 to it. So a 4+ then becomes a 5+. So a flesh wound is on a 4 or less kind of thing.
That's cool.
Is that right? Is it so the lower number is the positive number in terms of the lower you roll, the safer you'll be, or is the lower roll the
lower you roll, the safer you are?
Oh, that's odd. You'd have thought it'd be the other way around. Oh, is it the person who's making the armor save, the one making the roll, or is it the one who's attacking?
The one who's making the save. and then basically a flesh wound, a model that suffers a flesh wound, basically is restored to one remaining wound, and then if you've suffered multiple flesh wounds, then extra penalties are stacked on top.
It almost makes sense for it to have been the attacker to make that roll. If it's a -1 to the person being in ruins, as opposed to, I don't know. It seems a bit of an odd logic.
I think it's kind of based around like that model's kind of like resilience. Like, oh no, I've been shot, but I'm gonna grit my teeth and carry on going.
Yeah, but it's weird that for example, if you're the person that's just made a save, it's odd that you're then reversing the mechanic of the rule. So the higher you roll, the worse it is, which makes sense if you're the attacker, but not as the defender.
Yeah,
because you normally want to always roll high, unless of course it's like leadership or something. But yeah, it seems a bit odd.
I suppose the question I was more kind of interested in is, because obviously in 8th edition they've really dumbed down how cover works, right? So like, say for example in 8th edition I have a, let's say, one-man unit somehow of something, and they're in the open, but between them and the shooting unit there is a wall. Now, obviously, in 8th edition 40k, even though the unit that's firing at the one-man unit is obscured by, or their vision is obscured by this wall, because the model itself isn't in the wall or right up next to it, it doesn't get the +1 to its save as a result of cover. Is that remedied in this? Is a line of sight being obscured by a wall taken into account, or is that still the whole, oh no mate, you've got to be in it to actually get it kind of deal?
I think in this game, basically the saving throw, the player controller rolls d6 and adding any modifier based on armor penetration, but there's no +1 to being in cover. I think because the game is designed around such a small scale environment, in an urban environment, I think that it's based around the idea that everyone's always going to be in some kind of cover.
Gotcha.
So I think adding +1s, minuses would overly complicate it and take away from the fast-paced style of game that it is.
Fine.
But otherwise you're just spending loads of time just going, like, so I'm shooting your guy who's in cover, and I get a -1, and then because you're in cover, you get a +1, but then obviously my gun does -2, and I think it would just add too much to it.
Yeah, I think they basically swapped out the save modifier for the to hit modifier instead. But from what I've seen, it looks like there's no being in a terrain like you get in 40k, because as Joe says, everything is pretty much a terrain base now. So now it's done purely on line of sight. If your model, your target is partially obscured, even if it's like a foot, you will get a -1 to hit modifier.
Okay, cool. Well, it's good that they've kind of clarified that in this edition. Or not
Well,
this edition,
they've
but this
streamlined it as well from like Necromunda, because if I remember, Necromunda's like got a 25% obscured and a 50% obscured, defines whether it's like soft cover and hard cover, which even though I've not yet played Necromunda, I know that is quite ambiguous, like how much of a model is 25%. It can be quite difficult to determine sometimes.
Yeah,
so at least it seems like they've just streamlined that, and it just goes, you can tell if a model's slightly obscured or not.
Yeah.
That leads to no arguments.
No, that's fair enough. I mean, it's good that they've done that, though, because I always really hate in 8th edition 40k that there's that level of, like, literalness to it all, where it's like, oh no, your model is not in terrain, therefore it doesn't gain the benefits of terrain, which, again, I kind of understand within the confines of 8th edition 40k why they've done that, but to the same extent, I also it boggles my mind on certain occasions where it's clear that the rule is a little bit kind of, I suppose, a little bit kind of too literal. But you know, nonetheless, it's cool that they've kind of clarified that in this in this rule set. I mean, and there's no other like weird shenanigans with like when you get shot, right? Like if you're up on a level You're not going to fall off it a la early Necromunda / Shadow War Armageddon. There's no falling off things in this, right? It's a lot more basic, I'm sure. Jojo?
Yes. Sorry, I was reading that.
Exactly. It's like, oh, he's asked a question. Hang on. Oh, God.
Hang on. So, cover.
Cover, there we go.
Yeah. Oh my God. Sorry, it's hot and reading and yes.
There we go.
Yeah.
Are there any modifiers to shooting that are positive? So, for example, do you get like +1 for being on a higher level shooting down someone?
There's no +1s for like height advantages or anything like that. The bonuses only really come from stratagems,
Okay.
and leader buffs. So some. Let's see if I can find the basic stratagems. This is where sticky notes would have come in handy. But I know that guards have their orders still.
Mm-hmm.
So one of their orders is basically +1 to hit.
Oh, nice.
Some of the commander tactics. So there's some combat specialist abilities that give you +1 to hit. There's the sniper ones that give you +1 to hit as well, which is specialist. And there's like veteran specialities that you can do as well. And then each army has its own personalized stratagems they can use, and some of those confer +1s. I'll see if I can find. I think. Let's see if I can find the Thousand Suns psychic powers. Which are nowhere to be seen. Oh, how weird.
Needed to get some sticky notes in that thing, mate.
Yeah. Oh no.
Well, there we go. Let's not worry about that.
But basically, there are abilities that give you +1s to hit.
Cool.
So, for instance, there is a level 1 sniper tactic, which is 1 command point. Use this tactic when you choose a sniper specialist from your kill team to shoot this phase. You can add 1 to it as hit rolls.
Oh, okay.
At the end of the turn.
So tell us about combat, Joe. What's combat like? What happens in the combat phase?
Combat, just like shooting, you roll off for who has initiative. They brought in the old school rule, Hammer of Wrath.
Oh yeah.
Models that charge, but they've changed it. So it's back in name only. Models that charged in this battle round fight before all other models, and then you alternate between all the models that charged.
Okay, so it's the same 40k rule basically, but given a name.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And then the next ability is called Fight for Your Lives. Once with the Hammer of Wrath fight, players take it in turns to choose models from their kill team or pass in order determined in the initiative phase. So again, there's lots of abilities that, like, if you gain initiative, you can pass it. And then, just like in 40k, the fight sequence is 1, pile in up to 3 inches. 2, choose your targets if you're fighting against 2 people. 3, choose your melee weapon. And then 4, resolve the attacks, which is make it to hit roll, make it to wound roll, enemy makes their save, and then you roll to inflict damage. So just like shooting.
There you go. So
Pretty
fairly
normal
standard
stuff. Yeah.
Fairly standard, and obviously the only modifiers to that are -1 if there's cover in between you. The person, if you're both on either side of the barricade, the person who's been charged has the bonus basically because they were holding it before you got there. And then it's further -1s for each flesh wound that you've taken.
Another cover-related question for you, Joe, because I suppose, obviously, if there is a minus modifier if cover is between you, obviously infantry in 40k, when interacting with a ruin, is relatively bizarre, I suppose, in how it works, in as much as obviously a tank can't go through the walls of a ruins, but it's broadly accepted that an infantry model can. So, based on that, couldn't you just consolidate through the wall, or are they basically working on the logic that walls are impassable for the purposes of this stuff?
I think that the walls are impassable, but when terrain is involved for shooting and combat. So, like, for instance, if you charge someone, but your charge only brings you to the other side of the wall they're on, you fight as if that wall was there.
But couldn't you just use your 3-inch consolidation to wiggle around it?
Yeah. I guess if say, for instance, you've got 3 people who are lined up against a sandbag bunker and you can't whittle around, then you're going to have to fight through it.
Fair enough. So basically, in some very specific situations, fine. Fair enough. So in some very specific situations, you get a -1.
Yeah.
Fair enough. It sounds very bizarre to me. Do they have the same? Again, this is going back to the movement phase, I guess. But do they have the same weird sort of ruling on charges, in as much as it's not closest model to closest model? It's basically a case of roll 2d6, and you have to end closer than you were before and within 1 inch of something.
So, I think because normally it's going to be 1-on-1, so you're always going to be moving in a straight line. And I think if there's 2 people within 3 inches, I think you have to get as close as possible, but you can just move towards the nearest one if you can't make the charge on both.
Gotcha.
But obviously, if you choose to charge both, then they're both going to be overwatching you.
Sure.
I presume there's the same mechanic, but you can only attack what you've charged. So you can't charge one person, but then consolidate into someone else who's next to him, and then attack that person instead.
And so you can't pile into extra people, but they can still attack you.
All right, yeah, that makes sense.
And is heroic intervention an available option in this, or is that not something that comes up?
It's not something that's come up at all.
Because there's no heroes.
No heroes. Of course there are. They're leaders. They're heroic fellows.
They're all heroes. Yeah, I guess so.
Well, I guess that all said, shall we probably close out this bit by you telling us about how morale works? What's morale, Joe? How does that all work?
Basically, after all that stuff's happened and you've done your fighting and you're consolidating, it goes to the morale phase. And then basically you check to see if your team is broken. And basically, that's the only time you roll your leadership. If all models in the kill team currently have flesh wounds, or are shaken, or are out of action, I think shaken people are people that have taken hits but not been wounded, so they're like pinned behind cover. That was broken. Otherwise, if more than half of your models in the kill team currently have flesh wounds, are shaken, or are out of action, it may be broken. So basically, you roll 2d6. If the total is greater than the highest leadership of any of the models on your team, the kill team is broken. So you basically have to roll 2d6 and roll under.
Gotcha. So I guess the average highest leadership in kill teams is probably going to be, 9 or something of that nature?
I would imagine so. I'll just check the Necrons are the best ones.
I assume it'll be pretty low, actually.
Yeah, I imagine the aspiring sorcerer for Zench might creep up to 10, but...
Yeah. So a Lictor is 9. Warriors and Genestealers are 9.
It's interesting, though, isn't it? So I suppose, because again, this was the same in Shadow War Armageddon, you can effectively... I mean, that's good in a way, because obviously if you're playing against Horde armies, so say someone's getting close to their 20 model cap, then you can obviously shoot down 10 of the chaff units and then potentially break the remainder, I guess, which is quite useful.
Yeah. So, like, the Necrons are 10, same as they are in the Codex. So everyone's is exactly the same as they are in 40k.
Okay. And then
so they've made...
one last question with that in mind. can I declare each individual shot of a weapon at individual targets, or does the 2 shots from, say, a bolt rifle within half range have to go against the same one model?
It has to go against the same model.
Okay.
I actually know the answer to this one. You can, if it's multiple shot weapon, so say it's a heavy bolt that does 3 shots.
Yeah.
The first one goes on one target, but then the other shots can go against someone else that's within an inch of that first model. Assuming the back rep that I watched today was accurate, so you can sort of like strafe your bullets around.
Yeah, I found the part in the shooting phase that says targets. If a weapon that makes more than one attack, you can choose for the shooting model to make all of them against the same target or split them. If you choose to split the attacks, you must split them between an initial target model and any number of enemy models within 2 inches of that target.
2 inches.
Yeah.
Oh, so close, so close.
There you go.
Yeah,
Mate.
after
There you go.
determining the number of shots, declare how many you will split the shooting model shots before making any hit rolls and resolve the shots as normal. And there doesn't seem to be any negative modifiers for that. If you've got a heavy bolter and someone places their 3 chaffy units next to each other, you can just gun all 3 down.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really
So
good.
there's also there's a tactic in that as well. I suppose you could force your opponent to bunch up in a corner, and then use your multi-shot weapons.
There you go. Is there the ability to shoot your own men in the back? Exactly, shoot them in the bank. Oh, that's going where it hurts. No, in the back, as per Shadow War Armageddon, because again, that one was quite interesting. That if you missed with I think it was mostly like rapid fire weapons, but there was someone within like an inch of your line of sight or whatever, or like they were within 2 inches potentially. Can't discount an inch. You've always got to, every inch is precious. But nonetheless, you'd have the relative distance, and you could potentially shoot one of your own guys in the back. I seem to recall. Is that I'm guessing that can't happen in this version.
No, they haven't brought that. Basically, you can't shoot at a model if it's within an inch of a friendly model, like in 40k. But if they're an inch and a half away, you can just blaze away with no issues.
So basically, you can't shoot into combat either then?
No.
Okay. That makes sense, because everyone's because it's a kill team, it's like that every life is precious. You don't want to accidentally gun your own men down.
Yeah, and I think that was a big frustration for Armageddon. Because it's so annoying when you're like, I'm going to rapid fire into this as my guy charges in. Oh, I've gunned down my own guy, and your guy's fine.
Well, it's the way that Shadow War Armageddon worked as well, because all you had to do was hit the guy and he fell over. It was always the way. It's like, oh, you've hit connected, great, poof, down he goes. What have you done? And it's like, oh. And then obviously in retaliation, all they then had to do is declare a charge against him, and he was dead because he was on the floor, and now he's been pancaked by whatever it was that charged into him. But yeah, no, it's very cool, man. The only thing I want to ask as well, with regards to what you were saying about shooting into combat, I guess that rule isn't in effect if the 2 people in combat aren't from your army? Or from your
for example,
sorry.
in a
That is an interesting question, because it's not being brought up.
Yeah, so we're playing a free-player game. So if you and Phil were going at it, could I shoot either of you? And in doing so, would I have to randomly determine which of the 2 targets I'm going for, or would it be a case of I could still declare which of you I'm shooting at?
I think you could actually shoot 2 enemy models, because it basically goes, where's your turn? Choose a model from your kill team to shoot. You may not choose a model that has made a charge of 4, blah, 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 or is 1 inch of an enemy model. And then basically you choose a target. Models cannot target enemy models that are with 1 inch of friendly models at risk of hurting their own troops. So you could shoot. You could shoot one of mine or Phil's models, or if you've got a rapid fire gun, you could put a shot into both.
Well, and again, this is I'm getting really technical with the wording that they've used there, right? Because obviously, a rapid fire weapon like a bolt rifle is rapid fire 1. So despite the fact it gets 2 shots when it's within half the 30-inch range, my interpretation of the fact that it says rapid fire 1 is I could only declare those 2 shots against one target because it's still technically 1.
It says multiple shots.
Okay.
So it says you determine how many shots you have, and then you can choose how many people you're going to shoot against.
Cool. Well, fair enough. I feel like we've dwelled on that particular nuance way too long there, so I shall move us along to Joe telling us what his favourite part of Kill Team is thus far. What do you like most about it, Joe? What's exciting you about this edition?
Well, there's 2 things really. One is it means that I can paint models that I don't really get a chance to do. If that makes sense. So, like all my stuff is Imperium at the moment. So my starting army is going to be an Imperial army, but I've also got my eye on Dark Eldar and Normal Eldar. So it means I can get a box of Cavalite Warriors and paint those up. And I can get a unit of like Guardians and Rangers and do an Azayani army, which is cool. But also it means that you can really mess around in converting stuff up. If you're doing narrative play, the rules are you just pick models from your collection that fit into the current rules here, and then you give them a background. And you can arm them with whatever you want. So you can be like, cool, I'm going to make an inquisitorial warband and just give them the rules for guardsmen and scions. Cool. And you can really forge the narrative on that kind of way. Because I honestly can't be bothered to learn the rules for Inquisitor or Inc. 28. But I like the idea of making my own cool models. So it gives me a way to use those things.
That's cool.
I really do hope that they've kind of got that in mind, because the design team do seem to be very clued up about Inc. 28 and always do everything in the minds of, oh, well, you can use it for this. So I know the Forge World design team have come out and said Necromunda's been developed. So if you so want to create an Inc. 28 rule set using a new Necromunda game, you can do, and it's got that scope. So it'd be interesting to know if Kill Team's going to have that kind of thing in it, or if there's going to be an add-on that's going to support Inquisitors in some fashion.
I reckon it's definitely going to happen, because like the hints in here is like you've got Grey Knights, and they're really good at fighting demons, and they have specialities that work against demons. But currently, there's no rules for demons. And then you've got the Rogue Trader game coming out, which is going to be an expansion of Kill Team.
Yeah, that one.
Obviously, we've seen all those models which have blatantly got demons in. So I think the storyline is basically going to be Gellerfields go down on a ship, and obviously demons come in and take over the crew. And that's going to, and then I think that'll bring in more in-depth unit development as well. So like specialized bits of war gear. So I think the basic rules we've got now are that get everyone to have scenery, get everyone to have a basic team put together, and can really nail down the rules. So when we bring out the expansion, then people are ready to just basically go further in depth.
Do you think, here's an interesting question. So Rogue Trader is obviously going to come out in some kind of Kill Team box set, because it comes with its own terrain and it comes with 2 warbands like Kill Teams. Do you think there's going to be then therefore more Rogue Trader teams, like Kill Teams coming out? Because it feels like if you're playing that game, it's a bit of you've either got to be the Rogue Traders or the mutated crew. And that's it. Do you think they're going to expand on it and be like, here's like 5 more Rogue Traders, so you can have Rogue Trader versus Rogue Trader? Or
I meant that they'll bring in other stuff, like you'll have Rogue Traders, but then I reckon you'll have like more specialized units for each army. like, for instance, Eldar have Guardians, Storm Guardians, and Rangers. And I'm like, well, where are the Striker Scorpions? Because they're like the stealth specialists. There's room for games to bring those in. Or Dark Eldar, there's no Rax or Mandrakes, who are their stealth specialists. And stuff like that. So, like, the Imperium can really benefit from Rogue Traders, Sisters of Battle, Inquisitors, stuff like that. I think Games Workshop want to really make it an in-depth, fun game for everyone. Lots of people complained when they released Shadow War Armageddon originally, like, this game is perfect for playing Inquisitor, but we haven't got inquisitorial rules. And then they brought those in afterwards.
I suppose the thing is, as well, is when it comes to these kind of games and these kind of, not complaints as such, but these kind of, obvious lapses or not lapses, but just obvious absences in terms of certain types of units. It could just come down to the fact that they play tested it and realised that they weren't able to very accurately include units like Striking Scorpions and maintain something of a balanced gameplay experience. I think, when you look at units like Striking Scorpions and you go, oh, they're really well suited to kill teams, it's like, well, yeah, probably too well, potentially. I don't know. I mean,
I think, like, they could bring in a rule of, like, 0 to 1, 0 to 2 on these specialised units. But also, I think it's got a lot to do with plastic kits versus resin, because in this book there is only one unit that I can see that is a resin kit, and that is flayed ones.
And Elder Rangers.
Oh yeah, I forgot about them.
Yeah,
I thought they were. Yeah.
No, they're not. They're
So
not plastic.
there's a very minimal inclusion of resin kits, because the availability on the
and
unit
the Lictor
entry
as well. Sorry, I was going to interrupt you there. The Lictor is also only available in resin, I believe.
So what's available to the units is what's available in the box they come in as well.
Especially in terms of, like, weapons and war gear, right? Yeah. So maybe that determines quite often what they've selected. So you get a lot of generic, like, the basic Space Marines or the basic Guardsmen, because they can be loaded out with specialist weapons, which create your specialists. So you get sort of more value for money, whereas, I don't know, 2 Striking Scorpions have a lot of weapon options and customizability in terms of how you build that model.
No.
As opposed to it's one unit, it can only be built one way. Then they've probably gone, well, we won't include that in this game because this game's all about team customization. It's all about, you can take one model, but you can fit it out with, like, 5 different guns or 5 different weapons.
Yeah, the Aspect Warriors by design are very limited in scope in terms of, obviously, if you're going to take one of them. Obviously, if you've got a whole army of them, the different aspects kind of working in concert with each other is fantastic. But if you're going to take it as a single entry or a single unit to pick an overarching kill team, yeah, you're absolutely right, Phil. It wouldn't offer you anything close to the levels of flexibility. A Fire Dragon is what he is. He's a crazy elder guy who's wearing aspect armor or heavy aspect armor and carries a fusion gun, which is basically a melter gun, and that's it at the end of the day. Oh, it has melter bombs as well. But, I mean, incredible, like, potential option, but very, very limiting and not something that probably gives you that level of versatility or creativity, I'm sure.
Yeah, but there's no, the thing the way I've looked at it in, like, the Eldar side of things is it doesn't stop you from using those models. So, for instance, you can take Storm Guardians, which have close combat weapon, the Eldari blade, and chain swords, and a shuriken pistol. So you could just take a Striking Scorpion model with a chainsaw and a shuriken pistol. Obviously, it would never be as good as what it's supposed to be, but you've got that cool model on the table. And, like, Storm Guardians can take fusion guns, so you could put down some fire dragons. which is one way to look at it, I guess.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong.
Yeah.
So
They do have access to Dire Avengers as well. That's my mistake. I didn't see that.
Yeah, I mean, Dire Avengers, I suppose they fall foul of the same issue as any of the other aspects, but they do have a plastic kit, so I guess that's a thumbs up from that side of things.
And it means that Eldar have access to someone with 2 wounds as well.
I suppose the other thing though as well is a simple case of, Elder are unique, as are to a certain extent Dark Elder, I suppose, but not so much. But Elder are unique in as much as the fact that their elite section is made up of, well, actually no, it's not nearly that unique, because I think Necrons and Tyranids and Orcs are very similar, but they've got access to a lot of infantry based specialist elite units, whereas a lot of other armies don't necessarily have that flexibility, right? Like in Imperial Guard, the basic trooper is a troop choice, and yeah, sure, you've got rattling snipers, and you've got, I don't know, commissars. I think they're an elite's choice, and there's a few other things that you can kind of probably take. But broadly speaking, most of the elites or heavy support units from Guard, for example, are tanks, walkers, Ogrins, and other kind of larger profile things. So I guess, again, to me it all just strikes of balancing, right? They've probably just gone, we have to draw a line in the sand somewhere. Yeah, sure, we could give Elder every variant of their craft world, or every variant of their aspect warriors, but obviously that puts Elder at a massive distinct advantage, because they've got 8 different, or not 8 rather, with all the other Guardians and other bits and pieces, they've got 10 different options, whereas Tyranids have got Gaunts, Gene Stealers, and that's it. So I suppose based on that, it makes sense that they've limited each army to 4 choices. And
well, it seems odd because some armies have more and some have less. So.
Oh really? I had no idea.
For example, if you look at Gene Stealer Cult on the Warhammer Community preview, they've got 5 different units that they can take. So you've got the Neophyte hybrids, Acolyte hybrids, the hybrid metamorphs, the aberrants, and the Gene Stealers. Wow. And then you look at the Chaos ones, they can take Chaos Space Marines and Cultists. And you're like, oh, so they get 2, right? And that's it. And then Guardsmen, Imperial Guard get 3 Guardsmen, Specialist Weapon Gunner, and Tempestus Scions. And it's so there does seem like an odd imbalance where some have loads of variations and then others don't. I don't know if that's down to balance or you're saying, availability of the plastic models.
It's an odd one because so Space Marines have access to Scouts, Tactical Marines, Reaver squads, and Intercessors, right? But then Death Watch, who in their codex have access to Intercessor units as well, only have the option of a Death Watch veteran.
You sure they don't have intercessors?
No, their options is Death Watch veteran, and then Death Watch veteran gunner, a Black Shield, or a Watch Sergeant. That is all.
And there's no intercessors in there whatsoever.
Nope.
Wow.
Maybe it's because they want them to be different, so you're not having a Space Marine kill team and a Death Watch kill team that are effectively all intercessors and therefore play very much the same.
Here we are. There is a little addendum rule. So they've got the special ammunition, which is the usual add 1 to hit when it's obscured, or this weapon wounds on a 2+ kind of thing. And then there's a little bit, which was hidden from my original eyesight, is when you add an intercessor, page 85, or a Reaver to your command roster, you can choose for it to have the Adeptus Astartes. You can change the Adeptus Astartes rule for the Death Watch, and it also gains a special ammunition rule as well.
So you can take intercessors.
Yeah, so I don't see that. And obviously you can make it into a Fortis kill team if you wanted to.
Because I was going to say, because I mean, to me, the army that seems like it will benefit the most from the introduction of Kill Team and the amount of potential new players that will probably come flocking to their shores is probably the Death Watch. Because if you can take like small little elite, different types of kill teams, that's very much the kind of the makeup of that army, right? I mean, like Death Watch are definitely one of those armies that I'd consider buying some Primaris intercessors and building up a kill team of intercessors for a Death Watch intercessors for kill team, and then just be like, oh cool, well that's that's the beginnings of like the army and so on and so forth. It's more, I don't know, like because I feel like that's one of those armies that actually is going to benefit from this rule set, because I feel like a lot of people will probably do a Death Watch kill team and then miraculously be like, I have this Death Watch kill team, I'll chuck it in as an allied choice for my main army, because why not? I've done it.
Well, I guess kill teams, like the Death Watch kill team, is very much like that is what they do. They're all unique individual specialists. So therefore, taking them from kill team the game to play them as a 40k game, like I imagine will be pretty seamless. Like your kill team in the game kill team will always be always playable in 40k, whereas almost every other kill team in kill team, okay, it's getting confusing saying kill team lots, but in the kill team game, I imagine that quite often when you build up your kill team, you can't take that and play that unit in 40k, because you probably won't have the right weapon options. You probably won't have enough models, maybe.
Well, the thing is, so for instance, if you went to add Garden, and you go out and you buy your box of Cadians, their options to make a guardsman squad is exactly the same as their codex entry. So you can have one with a Voxcaster, one with a special weapon, and a sergeant.
But wouldn't you more likely have a couple of specialist weapon guys? So you might convert a few of them up.
Yeah,
So I guess you could go like, I'm going to have 3 guys from an infantry squad. One of them is going to have a plasma gun. One's going to be a sergeant, and one's going to be a Vox gunner. And then you could take 3 guys from a special weapons squad, and then exchange all of their guns for plasma guns. But you wouldn't actually be able to do it from buying a Cadian box set. So you'd have to buy like 3 command box sets at the same time.
No, okay. Because I know quite a few people have suggested, if you do buy the kill team box, when you get if you're playing Adeptus Mechanicus, to not build like just one unit of Vanguard or the other guys, Rangers, that's it. But actually probably do like a 50-50 split, because that's more beneficial to you when you're playing kill team. But obviously you then can't take that 2 5-man squads and particularly play them in 40k, because I think you need possibly 10.
No, they're 5-man squads in 40k.
Oh, I've been proven wrong. These people on the internet are liars.
Well, more often than not,
I'm one of them.
Either that or I'm a liar.
No, I think you're right. I think Zali Admech can take 5-man squads, but normally, for example, like Imperial Guard, they're 10-man squads. So if you were to convert a few of those guys up to be the specialist weapon guys, then you probably couldn't take that in 40k.
I mean, I suppose the thing is that, obviously, like you pointed out, I am now just one of those people on the internet, so it's very real that I could have just been, suckered in and started lying like so many others.
Spouted lies, yeah. No.
And it's definitely 5 and 5. One thing I quite like for Mechanicum, though, is that you can just buy a single box of Sicarans and build 3 Ruststalkers and 2 Infiltrators, and then use all... Which is cool.
They're pretty cool model.
They've all got 2 wounds each as well, which is pretty rare to have a full team of 2 wound models.
So I suppose now that we're starting to talk about the nuances of kill teams, I'm certain that at some point in the last 20 minutes, Joe's second favourite thing about kill team probably was highlighted. So we may as well move on to talk about our own ideas and plans of what kill teams we will actually start out with. So, Phil, I know you're a Krieg man to the bitter end, but what are you thinking of actually using in kill team in the next few weeks?
It is, believe it or not Krieg.
My God, I can't believe it.
Well, we played a couple of games of Shadow War, and I found Imperial Guard to be a bit underwhelming, and I didn't particularly like it. I'm doing something very similar, though. So, obviously, on Forge World, the Renegade militia models recently went out of production, so I snapped up a couple of those torso conversion kits for the Cadians. So, my plan is to do a Renegade Guard, Renegade Militia kill team. I then actually just today bought the easy build Death Guard Marine kits, so you get 3 Death Guard Marines in there to complement them. Because I was thinking I was going to do Cultists and Chaos Warriors, but I've actually just realised that Death Guard is its own separate faction and kill team, and has Pox Walkers instead. So what I might do is, even though they're sort of Death Guard, because the Renegade militia are all Nurgle themed in terms of their iconography, I think I might just take them and play them as the regular Chaos Space Marine faction within Kill Team, as opposed to the Death Guard specific one, because I don't think Pox Walkers can take guns of any kind. I think
they've just got a improvised weapon, e.g. a stick.
Yeah, so I like the idea of my little militia guys going around with lots of auto guns and stuff like that, so I think that's how I might gear them up. And a couple of them, there's like a couple of models where you can kit them out with these big sheaves of like big blades strapped to their arms. And I think it's meant to be twisted metal, but what I might do is paint them up as like Tyrannid claws, so it looks like they're so I'm going to do like a Xenos themed hunting army for my Renegade Guard, I think. So that's the general theme that I'm going with, complemented with just a couple of Space Marines, but predominantly it's going to be the Cultists.
I honestly cannot wait to see what your take on Death Guard Space Marines is going to look like. Speaking to the man who spent hours upon hours perfecting what his mud looked like.
Well, that's true. I think I might try and speed paint these as quick. I mean, I say quick as possible, and then it'll take me 2 weeks to do one model. But what I might try and do is branch out and do a few different techniques. So I might look at doing a really simple wash color scheme, so like airbrush it all a light green or something like that, and then just apply loads of colored washes to the model in a slightly Blanchitsu-esque sort of style way, just to sort of speedily get through all the colors. But I don't know, I'll have to wait until I build the kits out.
Awesome, man. That's pretty cool. It sounds amazing, to be honest with you. I do love the fact that you sort of said at the start, it's like, oh, I didn't like Guard and how they played in Shadow Wars, so what I'm going to do is Guard again. And it's like,
I know, that's the only downside. But
you're taking slightly worse Guard.
Yes, worse Guard, but complemented with some slightly better, hopefully, Space Marine warriors. So the mono, they're kind of mono build, those easy builds. There's only 3, and I had the dilemma of, do I spend like 10 quid and get the easy build ones, which there's only 3 of, or do I spend like 25 quid and get 10, which is way more than I actually need. In fact, the ones I really wanted it's like a cohort of 5 of them, but and I can't remember, he's got a specific name, but they're actually Terminators. But yes. They look like, the Death Guard Terminators actually look like just sort of beefed up Marines. They don't particularly look, 2 of them look like they're specifically in Terminator armor, and then the others don't. So I was like, oh, maybe I could convert them up, but
that would be cool, because then it would almost represent them as being like the larger than life individuals that they are. Because like they always say in the books how like one Space Marine can turn the tide of a battle. So
that's true.
Having this one massive Space Marine surrounded by loads of like cultists would actually show off how they do in the fluff.
Yeah. If only he had said this morning before I bought the easy build ones, you might
Well,
have
you
switched
should
me.
go back and get another one.
Well,
But that's the thing. If we do a campaign and it progresses, and I then want to add more onto my kill team, then I can do that.
well, if it makes you feel any better, Phil, I've seen those easy build Cataphracti, Death Guard Terminator models in physical form in reality with my own peepers. And they really do look like they're big Cataphracti Terminator models for real. So if it makes you feel any better, you made the right choice because
Okay.
yeah.
Well, yeah, because there's two that were in Cataphracti with the pauldrons or whatever hanging down, but the other two and the main guy didn't. They were still in Terminator armor, but didn't look quite so obviously in Terminator armor.
Yeah, no. When you're not looking at the photos, but you see them for real,
No, fair enough.
they're in Terminator. that dude with the I mean, to be honest with you, if you were ever going to get him, I'd strongly recommend converting him so as he's wearing some form of helmet, because his weird grinning face is...
Oh, I love that face. It's like the internet troll face.
Oh, I'm not
Looks
keen on it, man.
Looks a bit special. I think everyone that I know that's taken it has literally carved that face out and replaced it with like a normal Cataphracti helmet or a Tartarus helmet, just to make him look less stupid.
I mean, he looks fine.
That's how I feel about it.
He looks fine, but he doesn't look... It's not good. It's one of those, isn't it? It's like, it's all right, but yeah.
Oh, that's it. It's the Lord Felfius and Tainted Cohorts.
Yeah.
That's
I mean, he is massive. When you see him, he's a big boy, because obviously when you see him in the picture, he's filling a 40mm base, and he's he's a big boy when you see him for reals. But yeah, anyway, and same is true of some of the other ones. But I do agree, because there's a couple of them that don't even necessarily... I've got the picture up here. There's two of them, like you say, who don't actually even look like they're wearing Cataphracti Terminator armor, but it's...
No, they just look like super fat Marines. But then when you see their back, then you go, oh yeah, that is Terminator, because it's not got the backpack on. It's got like a specific Terminator style vents.
But they've got some nice nurglings with them, if nothing else, right? I mean, that's got to be worth it. The grenade nurgling there is looking lovely, and yeah, could be cool.
Yeah, having fun.
That sounds awesome, man. Well, there you go. So I'm looking forward
So
to
what are
seeing
you going to be doing, Dan? What's your kill team going to be?
So at the moment, I'm working on my 40k heat-free GT list thing. So we're going to be going up to the Grand Tournament heat-free in December. So I've been working on that army list, which is a Space Marine army list, which has got some interesting tricks and things to it that I'm looking forward to disclosing to people when I get to play them. But I won't go into those here. But as a result, I'm very much at the moment painting up some Primaris Marines and doing all that stuff. So I think I'll maintain that for Kill Team. I've got my own nice kind of custom paint job, which is somewhere between kind of like an old Imperial Fist Heresy colour scheme, but also kind of Red Scorpions-esque. So it's a predominantly grey Space Marine with one yellow arm, black trim, and then the other kind of opposing shoulder pad is also painted yellow. So essentially, if you can imagine, one entire arm and shoulder pad is painted yellow, and then the opposing shoulder pad is also painted yellow, but then the arm that resides underneath it is entirely grey. So it's grey with black trim, and then I'm painting the Imperial Eagle or the Aquila or whatever it's called black as well, with just a black casing around the gun. So my theory is I'll probably end up going mostly Intercessor Marines, but then at the same time I'll probably introduce some Reavers into that, just because for the sake of Kill Team, much like you, Phil, I'll probably pick up some of the easy build Reaver kits and add those into the list just to give it a bit of variety. The thing I'm really interested in, and I'm looking forward to getting my hands on the rules very soon myself, so as I can actually sit down and actually kind of theorize based on points and everything, whether or not a regular Space Marine is in any way worth it in Kill Teams. In my GT army list, I've got a 5-man unit of Sternguard veterans, So I need to paint some regular Marines as it is, but it's just whether or not those are going to be worth having. You've got the book in front of you, Joe. What would you say? Can I take a combi weapon on a?
So Marines, up to 2 tactical Marines in your kill team can be tactical Marine gunners, and then one can be a sergeant.
Mm-hmm.
A tactical Marine gunner in your kill team could replace his bolt gun with a flamer, melter gun, plasma gun, or grav gun. One tactical Marine gunner in your kill team may replace his bolt gun with a missile launcher or heavy bolter. A tactical sergeant can replace his bolt gun with a combi weapon.
Okay.
Yeah, so only one can have it.
Sure. And then what's the situation with tactical Marines with the option of taking like a chainsword bolt pistol? Is that available, or is that reserved to the sergeant again?
Reserved to the sergeant.
Fine.
They all come with the bolt pistol,
Mm.
and their fists.
Yeah.
Bolt gun, bolt pistol, frag, and crack grenades.
So based on...
Although they are very good, because although that said, all Space Marines have the transhuman physiology special rule, which basically is ignore the penalty to this model's to hit rolls from one flesh wound it has suffered. So the first time you take a wound, all Space Marines ignore damage. And obviously a normal tactical Marine is cheaper to put on the table than an intercessor.
Yeah.
So
what's the points difference between an intercessor and a tactical Marine?
A standard tactical and a standard intercessor is 3 points.
What difference?
Yeah.
So how much are they each?
So a standard intercessor is 15, and the gunners and the sergeants are 16 each. A normal tactical Marine is 12, and a tactical Marine gunner and sergeant is 13.
Wow. So basically, there's absolutely no reason to take a tactical Marine. That's always my thing with tactical Marines. It's like, how is +1 wound and +1 attack only worth 3 points? It's madness.
Well, the thing, I think you're forced into a situation because they've actually got max number of model options as well. So there's no maximum amount of standard intercessors or tactical Marines, but there's a limit of only 2 tactical Marine gunners and intercessor gunners in your army. There's only a limit of 1 each of the sergeants. So if you want to take lots of special weapons, you could take 2 intercessor gunners and an intercessor sergeant, and 2 tactical Marine gunners and a sergeant to maximise on special and heavy weapons. Your kill team would be quite small, but you'd be packing a hell of a punch.
Yeah, because I am sort of thinking about taking 1 heavy bolter Marine in the mix, and then maybe complement that with a sergeant, maybe. So that'll probably be where it ends up. I mean, again, once I get my hands on the book, I'll start doing the points. But the intent is to do this kind of grey-yellow colour scheme that I was kind of talking about, and then to build that up. So as I'm building up models ready for the GT Heat 3, which is my main focus at the moment. I don't have enough time in my life to take on too many projects at the moment. What with this, my job, my day-to-day existence. So yeah, I'm trying to streamline it a bit. So yeah, I'll be running Imperial, defiant in the face of all of this renegade shenanigans that you boys are talking about, or rather you're talking about at the minute, Phil. But yeah, what are you going to take, Joe? What kind of Xenos scum are you thinking of bringing?
Well, hilariously, I said that like the teams I'm interested in doing, but what I actually got was entirely different. so basically, like you, Dan, I'm preparing my army for 3. I'm basically been running the same list in 3 tournaments in October, November, and December. So I need to get those painted and done up. Because I'm running Imperial, I thought I kind of want to add some Scions to my army and see how they run. So I got 2 boxes of Scions.
Solid.
Me 10. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because your army normally is custodes or knights, and neither of which can be in kill teams. So I was wondering what army you're taking.
In my tournament list, I've now added a battalion of guard.
For the CP.
Yeah, for my CP kind of farm. So my kill team is going to be 5 scions and 7 guardsmen. So because the guardsmen are already going to be painted for my army. I'm going to be doing, and then it means I only have to pay 5 scions. But I picked up the other box because it means that I can make a Tempesta Prime and a command squad. So if I'm playing other games, I can just slot those in as a fun little addition.
You've gone to the dark side, Joe. You've gone competitive.
I know. I've become a terrible, terrible person.
To be fair, though, with that setup, the 180-point filler battalion, here's my 5 command points that generates a truckload of additional command points. It's such an efficient and strong addition to any Imperial army. I have to be honest, I myself am still toying with the idea of whether or not it will make its way into my army list as well, because at the moment I've got some options that I've got an option that I could remove and very, very easily accommodate, that extra 5 command points for the battalion. So yeah, it's sorely tempting to chuck that stuff in.
And I was toying with an alternate tournament list that had a detachment that had 3 knights in it, the guard battalion, and I still had points left over to run a Militarum Tempestus battalion as well, which gave me a bit of which gives me basically 5 units I can deep strike onto the table and land grab objectives turn 3. And then also generates me an additional 5 command point.
So there we go.
So that's also basically doing kill team. It's helping me on the road to that potential.
Yeah, cool.
So there you go. So Phil's doing something. Phil's doing something fun and new. Me and Joe are just worrying about things we're going to do in the future. You have to tell me about these tournaments you're going to, mate. I didn't. If there's room to sign up, I could use some more test games as well.
Well, I've been pointed towards a doubles one at the end of August, which I've been asked to go to, and I need a doubles partner.
Well, there we go. There we go. We can put the band back together. Blood and custard again.
Yeah, we'll just run the exact same army list because they're already painted.
Exactly. Well, if it's the exact same rules, I see no reason why not, because it worked well. We'll just get rid of that Kaladas assassin and exchange it for something better. Or in fact, actually, no, we'll run the army list you wrote on the way home from that event, where it was...
Oh, no, because that means I've still got to paint loads of models in 3 weeks.
I don't see how that's my problem.
I'm gonna have to steal some fans from work and just have 6 pointed at me, and that'll get me through this heat.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a big motivator for us, I think, as well. When we decided to go to the GT Heat 3, I was like, "There's no way I'm going into a Warhammer World event in July or September." It's like, no, that's not happening. It's too warm.
Heat 2 is in September. Could you imagine trying to paint an entirely new 1750-point army in this weather?
No.
It's just not pleasant.
No, it's not fun. But there you go. So Joe's going to do Imperial Guard, Astra Militarum. Phil's also going to do Astra Militarum, but they're not really. They're Chaos Space Marines or Cultists. And I'll be doing Space Marines. And then we'll probably end up chatting to our buddies Tim and Sean and potentially Richard if he's in the country at some point. And Mike even maybe as well. Maybe Mike, although obviously Mike's relatively transparent. Although actually that being said, Mike does have a Death Guard army. So he could go Death Guard as well, doesn't he? So yeah.
And the good thing about this game is it takes 40, 50 minutes to play on tiny little tables. So if you're playing in a garage, you can line 3 tables up and have 6 people playing and just rotate, get and knock out.
Yeah, because the mats actually all line up together. Apparently,
they line up together, but the tournament rules are based around playing on just that size mat.
Right.
So for an event organizer, it's really cool because they can just basically say, bring your own mat, or most likely they'll just go on eBay and buy 50 from people that are splitting the starter box set.
So what you're saying is that, you know, it may be in 4 or 5 weeks' time from now, once the game's out as of Saturday, we could set up an event in the calendar, the first ever Lookout Sir Invitational Kill Teams tournament. That could be cool. I'll be well up for that. Let's try and make that a reality. I've said it now on the podcast, so I feel like it should be a thing.
Oh, I
And
think
because
so.
you've said it, we're going to do it at your house. And that because no one else has room.
Well, yeah, but we don't have to do it at my house. We can go up to Warhammer World, or we can use, like, I don't know, we can go somewhere. I mean, it more than likely is going to end up in my house, but, you know.
You could go to Warhammer World and use, like, the Zone Mortalis table, because you could probably get... Because that's a 6x4, 8x4, so you could have 3 games on that easily, run it at a time.
There you go. We'll work it out. This is probably not something that needs to be discussed on this closing part of this segment. But yeah, thanks very much, Joe, for all your useful insights. I'm really appreciative of the fact that you took the time to read the book and to make notes.
Yes,
and...
I am very, very determined to fulfill my role in this group by being prepared.
Absolutely. I can't wait to see all the work you also do in the social media sphere as our community man.
Yeah, that'll happen eventually.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll get around to that sooner or later. We don't need people to listen to this stuff. We're just doing it for our own fun.
Yeah, pretty much.
But anyway, so cheers for that, Joe, mate. That was good. And I'm actually, bizarrely enough, after that conversation, I'm more excited about the prospect of Kill Team. So I'm looking forward to getting some games in. We'll have to... whether or not it's our kind of invitational thing, or we just get together, maybe the 3 of us at some point over the next couple of weeks and play some games just in the first instance, just to see how it plays, man. I'd be very, very excited to do that.
Most definitely.
Yeah, that would definitely be good.
There you go.
So
that's
get a campaign going.
Yeah, man, that'd be awesome. But yeah, so that's that. That's Kill Team. Let's move on now to whatever comes next.
Is that not the end now?
That is the end now, yeah. Although I'm tempted to leave you asking that question. So that, in fact, concludes our episode 3 of the Lookout Sir podcast. It kind of sounded like I was going to go on to another topic, or we were going to go on to another topic, but as it happens, we ended up talking about Kill Team probably a sufficient amount. So for now, we're going to leave it there. Thanks very much, gents, for your contributions. Thank you very much, Phil. Thank you very much, Joe.
Cheers, thank you.
No worries.
Thank you for having me, as usual.
Absolutely. In the short break between us recording this outro and us finishing recording the bit about Kill Team, we discovered that Joe was wrong about many things. So feel free to point out all of our mistakes in the comments below. Throw some abuse our way, because we deserve it. Especially Joe. Bad Joe.
We're going to chuck him off 1 inch from a ledge.
Are we going to chuck him off 1 inch from a ledge? We are indeed.
Yeah. Well, basically, I only really covered the basic rules, and there are a lot more in-depth advanced rules,
There we are.
as outlined in the advanced rules page of the rulebook.
Which, if
somehow
someone
managed
had done
this.
preparation whatsoever, they would have noticed.
Basically, I finished work, I had the book, I came home, I ate dinner, and then started talking to you. That was my preparation time.
There you go. You do live the life. Anyway, there we go, guys. Despite a few minor mistakes, which of course there was always going to be, it's early days, that was still our wrap-up on Kill Teams, and we look forward to talking to you again. Please like and subscribe and all those usual things that people say on YouTube, even though this will one day also be on iTunes, and I don't know how that works. Rate us 5 stars, is it? Is that how iTunes works?
Don't know.
No one knows. Anyway,
No one.
thanks very much for that. Cheers. Bye now.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Woo.
You didn't say bye-bye, Jay.
Bye-bye, Joe.
Jesus. He's really not with us today, is he?
Oh, God. Take him back.
Right then. Bye now. Woo.